Hello and good day. Welcome back to Mutale TV. My name is Lambert Lumano and I am your geography tutor. So we'll continue with doing Geography 2025. We'll do question 6 this time around. So question 6 is section B, the sub-region. And the question reads, explain the factors which influence the location of the iron and steel industry at Red Cliff in Zimbabwe. So basically, it's much like we did last time, where the answers are just the same, be it sub-region or local. But what differentiates them is the examples you give. So we'll start answering the question. So this is question A. Let's put in the brackets A. I'll be highlighting the main points as usual, while I explain them briefly. So our first point will say availability of resources. Availability of resources. So now this is a simple point. You can explain it since we're talking about iron and steel. So you can just mention the resources that are needed in the iron and steel, such as you can say availability of raw materials such as iron ore, limestone. We know limestone is needed in the extraction of iron, limestone, etc. For time's sake, we'll be making the explanation brief this time. Then you move on to the next point just like that. You say the next point, you say transport. So this point, you can write it as transport and communication, but a trick I can give you in geography is that to maximize on your points, try not to write the points combined. So instead of writing transport and communication, you can write them separately, but I'll write both for the sake of time. But as you're writing your essay, you can try to write them separately so that you have more points. Communication. So you can say a good road system and network encourage the startup of the factory. I was going to say factories, but we have to be specific here. So the factory. So that's 2 points. And the other point here, we move on to the next point, which will say, we can say water supply. Water supply. So this, again, another thing about these points is that they can be written in many forms, actually. One point can be in a negative and positive form, just depends on the examples and the explanation. You can explain the same point in negative and in positive form. That's the good part about geography. One answer can cater for two questions, or even more, actually, because you can write it in the sub-region, you can write it in Zambia and the likes. So now, water supply, how do we explain this? We say Red Cliff is located near the Kwekwe and is it Sabankwe River? Rivers, sorry. So now, water is very important in the production of iron and steel. It's very important. So if you, especially, okay, the examiner knows how important it is, but if you write it like this and you give these examples, because these are geological features that are near Red Cliff. So if you give such examples, the examiner will know that you actually know what you're talking about, and they will not hesitate to give you your mark. So you say, Red Cliff is located near the Kwekwe and Sabankwe rivers, giving an abundance, in water supply needed for the production of iron and steel. You move on to your next point. Your next point, you can say energy supply. Energy supply. Let me just highlight this. Energy supply. Energy supply as well. You can give an example of a power plant that is near the area, or maybe a form of energy that is used which makes the area suitable. For instance, you can say if they use hydroelectricity, if they use thermoelectricity. In this case, we'll say energy, or rather electricity. Okay, let me just say energy. Energy is produced by there's a power plant just there near Red Cliff. Is it the Wange? I'm not sure how to pronounce this word. Forgive my pronunciation. The Wange thermal plant. Wange thermal plant in the area. So, as we know, mining is energy intensive. Sorry, not mining. Production is an energy intensive activity. No matter what you're producing, provided it's a factory, you need a lot of energy. To top this off, you're dealing with minerals such as iron and all that. So you need a lot of energy. You need a high amount of energy. That is why energy is a very important thing, the availability of energy supply. So how many points do we have here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are many points to choose from. I can give another point of market proximity. Or if it's easier for you to remember, you can say distance to market. So if you put it like this, it's self-explained. You can say distance to market, or to markets. So now this is more self-explained, but we'll try to put it in other words and say there is a large iron and steel market in Kwekwe, making it easy to sell the produced product, or produced, let me just say produced materials. So now there's a lot of points which I will give later on. So once written like this, once this is written like this, it's just that then it has not appeared clearly on my screen, but this is how your points should look. I will write them down as well and explain, but just in point form, so that at your own time you can go through them and explain them in your own words. We move on to the next question. All right, so moving on to question 2, or rather question B. So question B says, explain the problems facing the mining industry in Zimbabwe. So the problems facing the mining industry. Problems facing the mining industry, for most places they're the same, but you need to, and okay, in this case you don't really need to give examples because they haven't specified saying which mines, but if you have examples in mind, you can feel free to give them. So now we'll start and we'll say the first problem the mines are facing is availability of resources, or materials. Of raw materials. So as we know, the Earth's resources are finite, meaning they run out, they're depleting, and if you look at the production, the yield of mines since the 1900s, from the 1900s till now, you'll notice that the yields are reducing. I can give an instance of South Africa, where in somewhere in the early 1900s, they would produce about 1,000 tons of gold per year. But by the late 1900s, somewhere 1988, so the production of gold was reduced to somewhere 650 something, if I'm not mistaken. With that said, the resources of the earth are finite. They reduce, they deplete. So now you can say minerals are scarce, and therefore mining cannot be done. You can explain this point however you understand it. Like I've been saying, we'll move on to the next point. We'll say capital. Capital. So capital, what do we mean by capital? Capital is the money needed, or the funds needed to start up a business or a project. So now, mining as we know it is a capital intensive activity. You need a lot of money to start a mine. So where there is no money, mining cannot take place. Therefore, mining is hard for small scale miners. So you can say mining is capital intensive. Capital intensive and small scale miners struggle with production and extraction. Another point we can bring out here is theft or corruption. Theft or corruption. If you have a way of splitting these points, you can feel free. But in my understanding, the explanation is pretty much the same. So theft slash corruption. What does this mean? How can you explain this? So in the mining industry, there is a lot of theft. People will steal. They mine. They yield a certain amount of minerals, but they only report another amount getting the other. Some will increase the prices as they're going to sell, and then they take back another price or or another figure to the government or the higher ups. So you can see, okay, which point will we use? We'll say minerals are stolen during transit. By transit, I mean transportation. Transit or after extraction. So some people will steal, like after the minerals have been extracted, they just steal the same ore before it gets processed and labeled. So another point we can use here is fluctuation of prices. Fluctuation of prices. So what fluctuation of prices means is that for every mineral, for all minerals actually on the global market, the prices are never constant. They can be one price in the morning and by afternoon the price changes. So now if you buy minerals at a certain price, or maybe you invest a certain amount in extracting the ore of a certain mineral, and then by the time you're done purifying it, you find that the prices drop. This discourages a lot of investors. It's not guaranteed. You may get an extra. You may get an extra yield. You may get a lower yield, depending on the way the prices are on that day. So you say prices constantly change. On the global markets. Prices of minerals. You have to be specific of minerals constantly change on the global market and are unstable. So you've written 4 points already so far. I've given 4 points so far. These will allow you to get your 6 marks, provided they're properly explained. But I'll add in another extra point or two. And then at the end of the video, I will display all the answers in just simply point forms. And then you can explain them as you understand. Another one, you can say high cost of energy supply. Okay, let me not say this one. Let me say, because we already put this as an advantage in the other one. So you can say lack of technology. Technology. Lack of advanced technology. Advanced technology. So you can say modern technology. Okay, let me say primitive technology is used for mining in Zimbabwe. So now with these points, you can get yourself your 6 marks. I will add more points as I've promised at the end of the video, which you can explain as you please. So these are the points. These are the points, you've written them down, and then now these are what are going to get you your 6 marks. And now, as promised for the full question, I'll write down the points. Okay. So these are the points. You can screenshot and explain them according to your own understanding. You can even make brief notes according to your own understanding. Thank you very much. This has been Mutali TV. Hope you understand, and if there are any recommendations or questions that you'd like to ask, feel free to comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll do your requested videos. Until next time.